Now, some would say that the finale for the 100 is next week. I think that this week's episode was a first-parter to a two-parter finale. Pretty much what happened on this week's episode, that to be continued at the very end. All of it really makes it feel like the first half of that finale. Everything is being set in motion as of the end of this episode, and even before that. But first things first though, welcome back guys to another one of my The 100 videos and my review of the 15th episode of the 7th and final season, an episode that was otherwise titled The Dying of the Light. Now I don't think what we thought about the title of the episode was correct before. I mean, a lot of us did think that Bill Cadogan is gonna be uncovered by his people as the fraud that he is, but that was not really the case. However, there was some truth to it because we did watch on this episode how Levitt was sort of completely changed by his experience with Octavia, knowing Octavia. That kind of changed something in him that made him into a regular human being rather than those robots that they tried to develop within Bardo. I think the dying of the light as well is all about what happened to Madi on this episode. I mean, that is the dying of the light. The one thing that keeps shining in Clarke's life, the one thing that matters to Clarke the most, a character that's representative of a certain kind of purity on the show. There are a lot of things that we could see on this episode as the dying of said light. You know, Bill Cadogan getting to that code, that's the dying of the light. The dying of the human race in general, because if he gets to do the test, then mankind is doomed. I think that this is one of the major things we're going to be arguing in the comments. Everyone is going to see it one way. I think it's so many ways. And that means that the choice of the title for this episode, that was pretty clever in my opinion. But okay, we are in the endgame now. Things are happening quick on all fronts. I'm sure we did not expect Cadogan was going to get his hands on the code earlier. I mean, a lot of people were like, this is going so slow. But in the end, don't expect the big things to happen before you get closer to the finale or on the finale itself. Because it is these kind of things that makes a finale get the title an explosive finale. So yeah, I did expect that's gonna happen closer to the end, and it just happened on this episode. So by the end, Cadogan is probably on his way to punch in the code or has already punched it and is on his way to the new location of the bridge. But okay though, let's break this episode arc by arc and let us start with the Murphy, Emory, Raven, and Jackson arc. So the name of the game on this episode is Losses All Over. Emory is in very bad shape at the very beginning. Jackson is trying to save her. Murphy is trying to calm her down. He's in a lot of pain seeing her in this state. We can all see that. In a very romantic moment considering the circumstances, they do talk. He hated playing primes. She loved it, and that was enough for him. She does explain and elaborate even further. You know, for her it was the very first time that she felt that she really mattered, and he tells her what both her and the audience already know. It's not true because she's always mattered to Murphy. But there is also the digging for the stone. They need to save Emory, but she wants to save everyone else. She's extremely worried about Madi. She's even guessed that by this point in time, Madi would have turned herself in, and that means that the repercussions are going to be catastrophic. You know, Cadogan taking the test and failing that test, dooming all of mankind. She's also saying goodbye to Raven, telling her in some way that she's her friend, that she's always liked Raven, that they're pretty close. She's showing growth over so many seasons. That's kind of showing on this episode. She was as much of a survivor as Murphy. Maybe not as slimy as Murphy when we first met him, but she was still just a survivor. And right now she cares about the welfare of everyone else. It's like Murphy found her, she found Murphy, and they kind of grew together. They kind of found their real bearing together. But amidst this conversation, she does tell Raven something else. You know, you're able to make the tough decisions, make the tough one, and go directly to Bardo. Just ignore me. Don't go to Sanctum. Let me die. Save everyone else. Stop Cadogan. And I think the major takeaway at that moment is that there is a contrast being drawn over here between Raven and Clarke, because Clarke would usually make the decisions herself. She would decide for everyone else and not take anyone's opinions into consideration. However, Raven in this case does talk about how she did that with Hatch, does hate it about herself, and right now she wants everyone to determine their own fate. Like, I'm not gonna surprise Murphy with this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna take away his own choice to save you. I'm gonna let him choose. I'm gonna take you to Sanctum, save you, and then save everyone else. That's kind of my thing. Now, the thing about the second half of Raven's statement is it kind of begs the question, is it possible that we're kind of getting a hint as to who's gonna take the final test? Is it gonna be Raven? But yeah though, by the end of the episode, Emory is unconscious, Emory is almost dead, we don't know what's gonna go down with Emory, is she going to survive? My personal theory over here is this is one of those twists, you're gonna think one person is dying and then that other person is going to end up dead. I think Emori is gonna wake up on the finale. I think Murphy does not realize that he is badly hurt, be it externally or internally, and that means the possibility I'm talking about over here is that Emori is gonna wake up, but then Murphy is suddenly going to collapse, and that's gonna be the end of Murphy. But yeah, by the end of the episode as well, they have gotten to the stone, they've punched in the code to Sanctum, and they're taking Emori to Sanctum to save her, or try and save her. Now before we move on to the other arcs on this episode, there are a couple of Easter eggs / highlights that I want to discuss over here. Number one, there is an Asgada crew symbol on the floor, which I think is another Easter egg to the prequel series. Someone has been there post the prequel Backdoor Pilot, but prior to them discovering the bunker on season 4. So this is kind of a promotional moment for the prequel. You're gonna know about that Asgada crew symbol on the floor when you get to the prequel. Number 2, for me of course, I love the reference to Norse mythology. Hey Thor, let's go. But let us not forget that this is probably meant to be more than just that. I mean, with Thor being a big and integral part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, me being a big fan of that universe for the past decade, I believe that was kind of a double reference, a double nod. But finally though, number 3, we kind of categorized the people at the end of last week's episode, the ones in the bunker as the group that is in the pit and the group that's outside the pit. And out of the group outside the pit, we've no idea what happened to Nyla, and we've got no idea as well what happened to Echo. So yes, as far as cliffhangers go, we've got the situation with Emori as of the end of the episode, the situation with Cadogan having gotten the code as of the end of this episode, we've got the situation with Madi. I mean, it does seem like this is not reparable, but it is possible it's going to end up being reparable, so we're going to keep asking ourselves that question. And finally, we've got the situation with Echo and Nyla. But that though gets us moving away from this first arc on this episode and into the second arc of the episode. Let's talk the pit before we move on to Bardo. So the episode starts with typical Clarke. She's about to make a decision on a whim. This time I'll give it up to her, about to sacrifice herself and herself alone, but nonetheless making a move, risking it all, including her team at the bunker, because then Cadogan would know the bomb didn't necessarily kill all of them. I mean, that's a possibility that could lead to him sending even more bombs. Now, even though I do not really like the decision-making style of Clarke, I do understand what's going on here. I do understand the emotional toll that the events of 2 episodes so far, number 13 and number 14, took on her. I gotta give it up to Eliza as well, because out of 7 seasons, if I were to choose an episode in which I favor her acting over her acting in all other episodes, it would be this episode. Like, she really delivered, extremely delivered. I'd actually say every single actor and actress delivered on this episode, but out of every one, my favorites over here happen to be Clarke and Murphy. But okay though, the decision kind of changes. Octavia volunteers to go through with her, however they cannot go through unless someone activates things on the other side. Another character on this episode that did a great job happens to be Gaia. I mean, she was quite epic on this one. That speech she gives early on, that is a major point that the series has always addressed. Faith doesn't just die. The objection over here is not about faith in general, it's about faith in false gods. You could see that, because in the end what Indra suggests is faith in the guys that left to get Madi back, Octavia and Clarke. That's the kind of faith that you want, believing in something or someone that you know is true, is the real deal. But yeah, the entire false gods thing, the entire faith thing, that's something that's been addressed for so long on the series, on seasons 6 and 7, more than any other time, but nonetheless, it's always been addressed. Don't believe in false gods. But alright, there are a lot of conversations here, a lot of beautiful statements, a lot of beautiful one-liners. We've got Octavia remembering Bellamy, the question of how it all ends, one last war, and then we transcend, become a light. Jordan, as opposed to the concept of war is a failure of everything, which is why it is a test, not a war. He does remind me of Monty as well, like the way he is built, a very Monty-like character. With him as well, we're starting to get an answer as to the question of the vision that he spoke about with Russel at the beginning of this season. No final answer, but he kind of starts elaborating on that a little bit, so yeah, we're getting there. Once again though, and even though on this specific episode I do understand the motive, but Clarke is all about making decisions on her own all over again. She's not even putting it to a vote, she's not even listening, she's just objecting. I mean, I'm all for caring about her daughter, but she is making a million decisions a second without caring about the opinions or the thoughts of others, without even processing it. But there's one last thing about this entire situation with the pit. Circling back to Gaia over here, we know she cares about Madi. I mean, she's conflicted as opposed to Clarke. Not completely conflicted. She's worried about her. She wants her to come back. She loves her, absolutely loves her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have sacrificed being the Flame Keeper, the only thing that she knows, sacrificed her identity as a person for the sake of saving Madi last season. But she is also proud of Madi. Like Madi did prove her decision right. Madi sacrificed herself for everyone. She turned herself in. That's something to be proud of when talking about Madi. I mean, it is understandable and it kind of offers another dimension looking at this, because when you think about it, Madi was born to be a leader, like a real leader. She doesn't need a flame to be a leader. She doesn't need a flame to be a commander. She could be a commander. She made the right decision at the right moment in order to make sure that no one else gets hurt. She even sacrificed herself later on in MCAP because she decided, I'm not going to give this guy any more information now that I've seen that memory with Becca, now that I've known that it is the end of mankind if this guy goes through with it. But okay though, we have got Clarke in one real moment. You could tell as well that she's regretting some decisions. Everyone she loves dies. She cannot keep doing this. Not again. That's what she says. And if she loses Madi too, she's gonna have nothing. She's gonna be nothing. A moment that sort of hints at the possibility that Clarke is willing to become herself a villain, even though I don't think that's the case. I mean, if they are foreshadowing it, it would have been a lot more subtle. So I don't think that's the case. I think if anything, they're trying to throw us off with that. But that, though, is the pit arc for you. Time to talk Bardo, Madi, Cadogan, Levitt, and of course the arrival of Octavia and Clarke. So first and foremost, Levitt is back, this time to read Madi's memories for all mankind. Madi's an MCAP. Madi seems to be cooperative from the get-go. She wants to end the suffering of her people, does not want to lose anyone else. She does as well explain to Cadogan, the code is not about a war, it's about a test. He's not believing it so much, but then with that God complex of his, trying to seem like the nice guy, he does explain, okay, even if it were to be a test, I would love that. I'll spare all the lives of my children. And this guy's lying because this is the guy that sent his actual biological son after his actual biological daughter with the possibility that one of them might kill the other. So he doesn't really care about the repercussions. I would say he is one hell of a liar. But okay though, let's go through Madi's memories, and there's a definite parallel with Octavia there, because Octavia does have this conversation with Clarke later on. Madi is to you like Hope is to me, like I were to Bellamy. And when Octavia was put in MCAP for the first time, the first person she thought of, the one person that would save her, the one person that she would rely on, she remembered Bellamy just in the same manner that Madi over here remembered Clarke. Now, I personally still have an issue with how the entire death of Bellamy happened, not the who nor the how, but rather the timing and the decision of Clarke that obviously yielded nothing. But there were other arguments about how it was just about the book. It was about Bellamy knowing that the book was Madi's, and was about the book being used against Madi to retrieve memories, just like what happened over here. Again, not a good decision at the time, did not yield anything. Shedhedda was left alive, but nonetheless, let's not be overbearing. Let's understand all the reasons behind it, because it was not just the book. But Levitt, though, I've always thought he did have an agenda, an evil agenda, one that did not match with that of Cadogan or that of Anders, but nonetheless he did prove that he does not really agree with the morality of the situation. Octavia did awaken something within, did change something within Levitt, and we do see that on this episode. He's really caring about Octavia. But we've got them going deeper into Madi's memories. We've got Becca and Callie. That's a scene out of Anaconda, talking after the white portal opened. Cadogan is happy to see Callie. After all, he's a father, an a-hole of a father, but nonetheless a father. You can tell from the expression on his face, you can tell from the way he tries to calm Madi down. I'm sure that is not just about getting the memories or keeping them intact, that's what he says, but there is this thing that was temporarily activated by seeing Callie. This little bit of kindness, a kinder side, his soft spot, a place in his heart that only Callie had access to and could unlock. But on the subject of all those memories, in rushing through them, we do see Lexa for a moment. I will always be with you. We also get to see Ali, Becca, and Callie again as that white portal opens. Her own memories from Sanctum, the events of the season. Madi comes to a point where she realizes that this is more dangerous than she thought it was. Cadogan's quest, that is. She saw it all. Becca went to the other side. She came back to realize that Cadogan was not ready. No one was, but Cadogan more than anyone. He could not be the person to take this test on behalf of all mankind. We've got Levitt not willing to do this anymore. Levitt going ahead and opening the bridge in order to get them through. Clarke and Octavia. They come through, but the bridge has been strategically moved, as I did mention breaking down the trailer. So yeah, this was for that reason. They're taken prisoners. They're put in the cell next to that of Shedheda. Shedheda does give us a nostalgic moment, singing the Grounder anthem. We do hear that. I think when we heard it the first time, it was either season 2 or 3, but nonetheless, it's a nostalgic moment. Goes along in hand with the whole Lexa memory situation that's going on with Madi in MCAP. Interestingly enough though, and in order to save Madi, Shedheda is being used here. He's now a prisoner instead of being given Sanctum. Clarke makes a deal with him, and I've got to say it over here. J.R. Bourne, the actor that portrays the role of Shedheda, I want to say that this guy is one thing that I'm definitely going to miss about this series and about this season in specific. I kind of love Octavia's take on all of this. That's War Levitt. It looks exciting in a hologram mod, but this is the reality. Dead people and blood and whatnot. But all in all though, I'm not going to explain what happened with Madi over here, but all I'm going to say is that was a touching moment. The offer made by Octavia to finish Madi so that she doesn't suffer anymore, that was also very touching. The entire scene with Clarke, that was extremely touching. I did shed a tear or two there. I could imagine the feeling that a person, a parent, would feel at that moment. So yeah, that was great acting for this episode. It was really good, really touching, a great scene. I don't know if Madi is going to survive this. The fact that in the end they did not finish the job that they decided to do does give me a feeling that Madi might actually survive, might actually come back, that maybe Levitt doesn't know what he's talking about, not fully at least. So I'm hoping for that, even though I'm not really certain about the outcome for Madi. Like I said, we've got a lot of cliffhangers at the end of this episode, very much expected. After all, we're heading into the finale, and this one felt like a first-parter to that very finale. So yeah, it is expected right before the finale that a lot of cliffhangers, a lot of fates of a lot of people are unknown to the audience. But here's the final thing though, all of this is interrupted. The plan to finish Madi is interrupted by the knowledge that Cadogan has gotten the code and he's about to start the last war. He has got into the memory that he needed and he's used it, and he's left Madi for dead. So, if you were supporting Cadogan over the course of the past few episodes, thinking that he is the shit, that he knows what he's doing, that he's a great guy, I think it is time to revisit that assumption and evaluate the morality of the character. I do complain about the immoral decisions that Clarke makes, but at the very least she makes them for some good that she wants for the people that she loves the most. But in the case of Cadogan, this guy is doing all of this for personal glory, for being the guy who ended up doing this, not because he wants to save anyone. He doesn't really care about anyone, including the wife that he sent to her death, the son that he might have sent to his death, and the daughter that he loves deeply, yet he didn't care enough about her to be a good role model and a good father. That said, on a strict 300 scale, I'd say this episode was a solid 9.5 out of 10. Loved every moment of the episode, was very engaged all the way through, and I really enjoyed the ending of the episode. Even though pretty sad, I did enjoy it, like it got to me. That said as well, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you expect is going to go down on the finale of the series. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, the 100 or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this one, stay safe, and have a great day.